everyone. So for today, we're going to talk about cardiovascular and its control. So what is cardiovascular? Cardiovascular system is sometimes called the blood vascular or simply the circulatory system. It consists of the heart, which is a muscular pumping device, and a closed system of vessels called arteries, veins, and capillaries. So question number 1. Describe the structure of the heart. The heart is divided into 4 chambers, 2 atria and 2 ventricles, with the atria receiving blood and the ventricles pumping it. The right atrium receives blood from the superior vena cava, as well as the coronary sinus. The blood then pumped to the lungs by the right ventricles. A pericardial sac surrounds the heart and is lined with parietal layers of a serous membrane. Question number 2. The pattern of blood flow through the valves and the chambers of the heart. So pumps needs a set of valves to keep the fluid flowing in one direction, and the heart is no exemption. The heart has 2 types of valves that keep the blood flowing in the correct directions. The valves between the atria and ventricles are called atrioventricular, or also known as cuspid valves, while those at the bases of the large vessels leaving the ventricles are called semilunar valves. So question number 3. How the heart as a muscle is supplied with blood. The coronary arteries supply the heart with its own blood supply. Near the point where the aorta and the left ventricles intersect, 2 main coronary arteries branch out from the aorta. These arteries and their branches supply an areas of the muscle. Question number 4. What happens when the resting heart must suddenly supply an exercising body? So during sudden exercise, the left ventricle has an increased demand to deliver blood, leading to hypertrophy.
What is torsional contractions of the heart and why it is important during exercise? According to Merriam-Webster, torsional is a twisting or wrenching of a body by the exertion of forces tending to turn one end or part about a longitudinal axis while the other is held fast or turned in the opposite direction. So torsional contraction of the heart is when contraction and relaxation of the atria and ventricles create a twisting and twisting action. So twisting action is enhanced threefold during exercise and access in efficient ventricular feeling. Cardiac twisting mechanics are improved with exercise, training, and reduced deep training. As inotropy also increases during exercise, more potential energy is produced during cycle through vigorous twisting contraction, resulting in greater diastolic and twisting, and therefore allowing for diastolic feeling to occur more rapidly. During cycle, contraction of the cardiomyocytes induce both normal and feeling because the increase in heart rate shortens the duration of diastole. What events take place that allow the heart to contract, and how is heart rate controlled? The impulse starts in a small bundle of specialized cells located in the right atrium, called the SA node. The electrical activity spreads through the walls of the atria and causes them to contract. This forces blood into the ventricles. The SA node sets the rate and rhythm of your heartbeat. The atria and ventricles work together, alternately contracting and relaxing to pump blood through your heart. The electrical system of your heart is the power source that makes this possible. Your heartbeat is triggered by electrical impulses that travel down a special pathway through your heart. First is the SA node or the sinoatrial node, known as the heart's natural pacemaker. The impulse starts in a small bundle of specialized cells located in the right atrium, called the SA node. The electrical activity spreads through the walls of the atria and causes them to contract. This forces blood into the ventricles. The SA node sets the rate and rhythm of your heartbeat. Normal heart rhythm is often called normal sinus rhythm because the SA sinus node fires regularly. Second is the AV node or the atrioventricular node. The AV node is a cluster of cells in the center of the heart between the atria and the ventricles and acts like a gate that slows the electrical signal before it enters the ventricles. This delay gives the atria time to contract before the ventricles do. Third is his Purkinje network. This is the pathway of fibers sends the impulse to the muscular walls of the ventricles and causes them to contract. This forces blood out of the heart to the lungs and body. And last is the SA node fires another impulse and the cycle begins again. How does heart rate control? So heart rate is controlled by the two branches of the autonomic or involuntary nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system or the SNS and the parasympathetic nervous system or the PNS. Your body controls your heart by the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, which have nerve endings in the heart. The hormones such as epinephrine and norepinephrine, which circulate in the bloodstream. So the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system are opposing forces that affect your heart rate. Both systems are made up of very tiny nerves that travel from the brain or spinal cord to your heart. The sympathetic nervous system is triggered during stress or a need for increased cardiac output and sends signals to your heart to increase its rate. The parasympathetic system is active during periods of rest and sends signals to your heart to decrease its rate. Again, the SA node starts the sequence by causing the atrial muscles to contract. That's why doctors sometimes call it the anatomical pacemaker. The signal travels to the AV node through the bundle of His, down the bundle branches, and through the Purkinje fibers, causing the ventricles to contract. So when the heart muscles contracts or beats, it pumps the blood out of the lower chambers of the heart. The heart contracts into two stages. In the first stage, the right and left atria contract at the same time, pumping the blood to the right and left ventricles.
Good day everyone, this is Cherry Bayatlang and I will go to answer question number 4 and question number 5. So systole and diastole are the two phases of cardiac cycle and they occur as heartbeats, pumping blood through a system of blood vessels and carry blood to every part of the body. SBP stands for systolic blood pressure and DBP stands for diastolic blood pressure. From the word systolic, we can understand that it comes from systole and diastolics. Diastolic comes from diastole itself. When the doctors read your blood pressure, the systolic blood pressure is the top number of the doctor's reading and the diastolic blood pressure is the bottom number of the doctor's reading. Flow or blood flow is the movement of blood through vessels, tissue, or organs, while the slowing or blocking blood flow is called resistance. Then the pressure or blood pressure is the force that blood exerts upon the walls of blood vessels or chambers of the heart, They have the different rules and functions in our hearts that help us to live. Just like for example, when your blood pressure is 100/80, which is the normal blood pressure of the person, the 100 above is your systolic blood pressure and the 80 below is your diastolic blood pressure. Both systolic and diastolic pressure are important. If the readings are too high, hypertension may be present, and if the readings are too low, there may be insufficient blood flow to critical organs such as brain. Without systole and diastole, we can't read our SBP and DBP, or systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. Flow or blood flow is the movement of blood through vessels, tissue, or organs, while the slowing or blocking blood flow is called resistance. Then the pressure or blood pressure is the force that blood exerts upon the walls of blood vessels or chambers of the heart. They have the different rules and functions in our hearts that help us to live.
Hi everyone, I am Bernie Bagana Jr. and for today's topic I am going to discuss about the blood flow to the various regions of the body controlled and how does muscle blood flow increase during exercise despite increased sympathetic nerve activity that favors vasoconstriction. But before anything else, before I will start my discussions, so I am going to discuss first some terms that maybe some of you are not capable of. So first is aorta. So aorta is the large artery that carries oxygen-rich blood from the left ventricle of the heart to other parts of the body. Next is the arteries, are the blood vessels that deliver oxygen-rich blood from the heart to the tissue of the body. And next is the vasoconstriction. So vasoconstriction is the opposite of vasodilation. So if vasoconstriction is the narrowing of blood vessels, then the vasodilation is the widening of your blood vessels. So like this. If the vasodilation is the widening, so like this is the wide of your blood vessels, then the vasoconstriction is the narrowing of your blood vessels. So it's due to a contraction of muscles in the blood vessels. When vasoconstriction occurs, the blood flow to some of your body tissues becomes restricted. Next is the outflow of the plantar venous plexus is always through the PT deep veins and supervise unidirectional movement of blood from the foot into the deep system. This directed flow of blood is assisted by the presence of valves within the plantar venous plexus. So now let's proceed to our discussion. So blood flow. So what is blood flow? So it is a pulse wave that moves out from the aorta and through the arterial branches, then is reflected back to the heart. So movement of blood throughout the circulatory system is created by differences in pressure generated by the pumping of the heart. Pressure is greatest immediately after exiting the heart and drops as it circulates around the body, particularly through the arterioles and capillary networks. A greater differences in pressure results in a greater velocity, assuming all else remains equal. So when increased blood flow is required, the heart can pump more quickly and also in large volume. The blood flow along the arteries, arterioles, and capillaries is not constant, but can be controlled according to the needs of the body. For example, more blood is directed to the skeletal muscles, brain, or digestive system when it is active, and can reduce or increase blood flow to the skin to help regulate body temperature. Blood flow is regulated by the vasoconstriction or the vasodilation, so what I've stated a while ago. So of the smooth, again, blood flow is regulated by the vasoconstriction or vasodilation of the smooth muscle fibers of blood vessel wall, usually small arteries. So this regulation may be systemic, affecting the entire circulatory system, or limited to specific tissues or organs. Then next is the blood flow during exercise. So blood flow within muscles fluctuates as they contract and relax. So during contraction, the vasculature within the muscle is compressed, resulting in a lower arterial inflow, with inflow increase upon relaxation. So the opposite effect would be seen if measuring venous outflow. So we already know what is venous outflow. So this rapid increase and decrease in flow is observed over multiple contractions. If the muscle is used for an extended period of time, so mean arterial inflow will increase as the arterioles vasodilate to provide the oxygen and nutrients required for contraction. So the vasodilate, so those the narrowing, the widening of your blood vessels. So following the end of contractions, this increased mean flow remains to resupply the muscle tissue with required nutrients and clear inhibitory waste products due to the loss of the inhibitory contractile phase. So that's all. Thank you.
Describe the three important mechanisms for returning blood back to the heart when someone is exercising in upright position. The three important mechanisms for returning blood back to the heart while exercising upright are metabolic regulation, endothelium, and the myogenic response. Metabolic regulation causes arterioles to dilate by releasing vasodilating chemicals to allow more blood to flow to the area. The endothelium triggers mediated vasodilation, initiating the process in vascular smooth muscles, delivering blood containing to nitric oxide. The myogenic response creates the pressure inside the vessels, which causes both vasodilation and vasoconstriction. Describe the primary function of blood. The primary function of blood include the transporting oxygen and substrates in the circulatory system to be used through the entire body. Temperature regulation during physical activity due to the heat production from the muscles. The buffer acids formed during anaerobic metabolism, maintaining homeostasis. So blood has the three main functions: the transport, protection, and regulation. Blood transports the following substances, gases, namely oxygen and carbon dioxide, between the lungs and the rest of the body, nutrients from the digestive tract, and storage sites of the rest of the body.